Good evening. Welcome to the Newberry College 250th celebration and signing of the Declaration of Independence. My name is Keith Ring. I'm professor of political science, public and nonprofit administration here at the college. At this time, if you are able, please stand for the singing of the national anthem. And then we will, by Ms. Kayla Suegra, and then after that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Anna Johnson. Ms. Consuegra, please.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please remain standing? We would have the invocation by our pastor, David Kaufman.
Let us pray. Gracious and liberating God, we gather in gratitude as we remember the signing of the Declaration of Independence, marking this 250th year with humility, reflection, and hope. You hear the cries of your people and act in mercy and justice. You are the one who breaks chains and calls your people into freedom. As you led your people out of bondage, you continue to stir in every generation a longing for dignity, justice, and abundant life. We give thanks for those who dared to dream and proclaim that all are created with worth, yet we confess that the work of freedom is not finished, and the promise of this nation has not been fully realized for all. Oh, prophetic God, speak into our time, cry out against all that divides and dehumanizes. Unmask every form of tyranny, seen and unseen, that denies your children their dignity. Raise up in us courage, compassion, and conviction, that we may love not only in word but in action, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, caring for the vulnerable, and standing with the marginalized. Build us among the communities of belonging where every person is seen, known, and valued, where differences are honored and your spirit creates unity without erasing anyone. O God of steadfast love, root us in the way of Christ, not domination, but servanthood, not violence, but sacrificial love. Give us courage to walk this path, trusting that your kingdom is even now unfolding among us. And we mark this anniversary, shape us by memory, refine us through repentance, and guide us with hope. Make us instruments of your peace, bearers of your justice, and faithful stewards of your freedom for generations to come. In the name of Jesus Christ, our liberator and our peace, we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. I would ask you this time to please silence your phones or turn them off. I am honored to serve as the MC tonight, recognizing the accomplishments of a young lawyer and graduate of the College of William and Mary. Thomas Jefferson, at the young age of 34, tasked with writing a political document inspired by John Locke's social contract theory, stating the reasons for our eventual break and independence from England. We are fortunate tonight to have several Newberry College students read that powerful document that has withstood much debate and scrutiny for almost 250 years. You will also hear from one of our students reading the Gettysburg Address, a powerful speech given by President Abraham Lincoln on November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' Cemetery at Gettysburg, recalling the founding of the United States, emphasizing that our nation was conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Finally, we are very blessed to honored to have as our keynote speaker, Dr. Tracy Power, Associate Professor of History and also the Director of the Newberry College Archives. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Beth Hinga, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Newberry College, who will introduce our special invited guest that we are privileged to have in attendance with us this evening. Dr. Hinga.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Beth Hinga, and I have the distinct privilege of serving Newberry College as the Vice President for Academic Affairs. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and administration of Newberry College, it's my honor to extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to each of you as we gather to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We are truly grateful that you've chosen to join us on this night in this place to celebrate this extraordinary milestone in American history. 250 years ago, a group of individuals came together with the courage and conviction to put forward a bold idea that all people are created equal and that they are endowed with inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence was not simply a statement of separation from England and its king, it was a declaration of possibility. It ignited a revolution in thought and set into motion a noble ongoing journey, one that calls each generation to reflect, to question, and to strive toward a more just and equitable society. Tonight, we reflect on a document that not only shaped the founding of a nation, but also shaped the bedrock of education in our country, freedom of thought, the pursuit of knowledge, and the belief that all individuals are endowed with the capacity to learn, grow, and contribute to society. The Declaration of Independence reminds us that education is not simply the transmission of knowledge, but a vital force in sustaining democracy, fostering critical thinking, and empowering individuals to engage thoughtfully with others in the world around them. At Newberry College, we're proud to carry forward these principles in our classrooms and throughout our community. This anniversary is an opportunity to not only look back on this tremendously significant event with reverence and reflection, but it is also an opportunity to reaffirm our calling to develop thoughtful citizens who are empowered by knowledge, inspired by reason, and committed to the common good, just as the signers envisioned. We're honored this evening to be joined by distinguished guests who enrich the celebration with their presence and their perspective. First, we will hear from the Honorable Congresswoman Sherry Biggs. She is unable to join us in person, but she has provided a video message for this occasion.
Good evening. Thank you to the students, the faculty, the elected members, and community members for being here. I'm honored to join you as we celebrate the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration was not a symbolic document when it was written. It was a declaration of war. 56 men signed it knowing they were committing treason against the British crown. If they failed, they would lose everything, and they signed it anyway. Because they believed in a simple, powerful truth: our rights do not come from government, they come from God. That idea is the foundation of this country. It defines the role of government, not to grant rights, but to protect them. I've had the privilege of serving both in Congress and as a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard. In both roles, I took an oath to defend the Constitution, which rests on these principles. While overseas on deployment, I've served alongside Americans from communities just like Newberry. They understand that freedom is not guaranteed, and it must be protected. Each generation has carried that responsibility. The founders built this republic. Others fought to preserve it. Now that responsibility belongs to you. To the students here tonight, you are stepping into a world that is more complex and more competitive than ever before. But the mission has not changed. Stand for truth, defend liberty, take responsibility for the future of this country. Scripture reminds us in Galatians chapter 5, verse 1, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free. Freedom is not passive. It requires courage and conviction. 250 years after the Declaration was signed, the American Republic is still standing, not by accident, but because generations chose to defend it. Now it's your turn to carry it forward. May God bless you. May God bless our military, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
The Honorable Ronnie Cromer of the South Carolina Senate was scheduled to be here, but is doing the work of government tonight in the State Senate chamber. So we will move to our next distinguished guest, the Honorable Joe White, who is here with us this evening with his wife, and we are very pleased to have you here. Thank you.
I'm really glad y'all couldn't see Sherry because she is so much prettier than I am. It would have been a disappointment after seeing her. Thank you, Dr. Hinga. Thank you, Newberry College. And thank you, Dr. Lambries, for pulling this together tonight. I think everybody knows that this document is actually the foundation of the United States of America. 4 years ago, I gave my first ever political speech. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't scheduled. The guest speaker didn't show up. So the chairman said, we've got 3 people running for the State House here tonight, so I believe I'll let them all come up and speak. When it came my turn, I stood up with nothing prepared, and I quoted one line. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Tonight, I want to come back to that same line, but I really want to go deeper. This document, about 1,300 words. After a while, some of the students are going to read this document. It'll take them about 10, maybe 15 minutes to read it. 56 men signed it. 56 men willing to risk everything. This is the foundation of everything we know as the United States of America. We all know the beginning of the Declaration, but we rarely hear anybody talk about the middle part, the part that really is important. The middle of the Declaration is where the truth is laid out. That's where they explain why they risked everything. These 56 men were not acting based on their emotions. They were acting based on the evidence of what was going on. Here are two quotes from the middle of that declaration that explain everything and why they were willing to risk it all. The first quote, he, the king, has refused his assent to laws necessary for the public good. The second quote about the king, he has made judges dependent on his will alone. Now let me bring that out of history and into something I have spent the last 4 years fighting for. One of the major issues I have campaigned on, and one I have traveled this state talking about, is judicial independence. Because here in South Carolina, the legislature controls the judicial system, and that legislature is dominated by lawyers. So think about what that means. The same group that writes the laws, elects the judges, decides the judges' pay, and then stands in front of those judges in courtrooms and pleads their cases. That's not independent justice. That's influence. That's the way the king did it. I believe that goes directly against what the men who signed the Declaration believed in. In fact, it looks a whole lot more like what they were fighting against. They said the king made judges dependent on his will, and that when justice is no longer independent, freedom is not far behind. That's exactly why this matters. Because when one branch of government begins to control the very system that is supposed to hold it accountable, it will not stop there. It doesn't stay in the courtroom. It doesn't stay in the system. It moves into our life. It starts to reach into your rights. The very rights that those men wrote about: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those weren't just ideas. Those were lines drawn in the sand. Because the moment accountability begins to fade, the moment power begins to concentrate, those rights are the next thing at risk. That's why they wrote them down. That's why they declared them. That's why they were willing to risk everything to protect them. So let me tell you what those three rights mean to me. First, life. I believe life begins at conception and continues until natural death. Government must protect that right. Second, liberty. Freedom can mean chaos, anarchy. Liberty is freedom with accountability. We've drifted toward freedom without accountability, and that's not what they meant. Third, the pursuit of happiness, not guaranteed happiness, the right to pursue it. Government cannot take that away. I believe that Creator is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If government takes those rights, it is not just our right, it is our duty to replace that government. Vote them out. Do we believe those truths? Do we live by them? If we don't, we will lose them one piece at a time. If we don't defend what they declared, we will not keep what they gave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Nick Sheely, who is chairman of the Newberry County Council.
Thank you so much for having me. That's a hard act to follow, Mr. Joe. You set the bar real high. First of all, good evening, everyone. It's an honor to stand before you as we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, one of the most defining moments in our nation's history. Today, we reflect with deep appreciation on the courage and vision of our forefathers. These were individuals who risked everything, their livelihoods, their safety, and their futures, to establish a new nation founded on principles of liberty, self-governance, and individual rights. Their dedication laid the foundation for the freedoms we enjoy today. What they began in 1776 did not end there. The spirit of self-governance continued to grow and evolve, shaping how we govern ourselves at every level. Here in South Carolina, that legacy took a significant step forward 51 years ago with the establishment of the Home Rule Act. Home Rule gave local communities like ours the ability to make decisions that directly affect our citizens. It empowers counties to govern more effectively, respond to local needs, and provide services in a way that reflects the values of the people we serve. Because of that progress, I have the privilege of serving you on Newberry County Council today. That opportunity exists because of the sacrifices made by our nation's founders and the continued commitment to local governance that followed. So as we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, let us remember not only the history, but the responsibility that comes with it. It is up to all of us to carry forward those principles of freedom, service, and community. Thank you, and may God bless Newberry County, state of South Carolina, and the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Shealy. Next, we have the Honorable Foster Senn, Mayor of the City of Newberry.
Thank you, Dr. Hinger, and thank you, Newberry College. It is a pleasure and honor to be here. I'm always impressed with Newberry College every time I visit, and that goes from the students to the faculty and the staff. Know that we are proud of you. A group I'm particularly impressed by is the Political Science Department. We work with them on a number of efforts, including annually. They host our February City Council meeting at the Center for Teacher Education. The political science professors are eager, knowledgeable, and most importantly, they care. That shows in their work, including putting together this event and evening and inviting in the community. I would like you to join me, please, in a round of applause for the Political Science Department. Kudos to Newberry College for celebrating the Declaration of Independence. Our foundational document created a new relationship between a government and its people, from one led by kings to a government in the hands of the people. And as our nation celebrates this year the 250th anniversary of our founding, it's been a great review for me how much South Carolina contributed to the American Revolution. In fact, on July 3rd at Memorial Park beside the Newberry Opera House, our community will put a new American Revolution marker in the park, saluting those that founded our country, including with some paying the ultimate price to establish America and our freedom. The new marker will include a list of the 11 skirmishes in Newberry County between patriots and Tories. Of the Declaration of Independence I read, its language has been the primary tool for every American generation to hold the nation accountable to its highest ideals, serving as a constant reminder that the work of liberty is never truly finished. That is a cause for celebration. Thank you.
At this time, we will now have students reading that powerful document, the Declaration of Independence.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their creators with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That should secure that these rights governs are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the concept of govern. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is right to the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed, and will dictate governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience have shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than the right to themselves by abolishing forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, invices a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of alienation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He's obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary power. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substances. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. He has effectively to render the military, independent of and superior to the civil powers.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offences, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighbouring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is in this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of civilized nations. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taking captive of the high seas, to bear arms against this country, to become the executioners and their friends and brethren, or the fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an indistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity and have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessities which denounce our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Let's give him another hand. That is outstanding. And I want to acknowledge at this time Xavier Haired White, the second person that he jumped in right at the end. So we had an event that happened. Somebody else who was supposed to read could not read. So we appreciate him doing that, jumping in at the end. Thank you again, Xavier. We are honored tonight to have as our keynote speaker, Dr. Tracy Power, Associate Professor of History and the Director of the Newberry College Archives as our keynote address. Dr. Powers is not only a colleague, but a dear friend. At this time, let's give him a warm hand. Dr. Powers.
Good evening and thank you. It is the joy of my professional life to be able to be a professor at Newberry College. That's all I ever wanted to do. Being a professor at Newberry College is my dream come true. And the students, faculty, and staff here make that dream come true every day. Thank you. It's a rare honor and a privilege to be asked to give a few words as a keynote on the Declaration. Though the first few words are so familiar from our reading them or less often hearing them, they still have a special ring to them. 77 years ago, in that moment, in 1863, not 1776, and at the dedication of the new Soldiers Cemetery at Gettysburg, Abraham Lincoln knew that the audience gathered there and those who would read his words in newspapers all over the disunited states, the would-be Confederate states, and all over the world would understand both his historical reference and his rhetorical one. He continued, "Our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." In the most famous speech in American history, in fewer than 300 words, Lincoln redefined the Declaration of Independence for his generation and for generations to follow. John Meacham's recent observation that Thomas Jefferson had the best friend in the world in Abraham Lincoln may sound like a clever anachronism until we consider that the Declaration meant in 1776 one thing, and how rare it was for Americans to agree on what it meant between 1776 and 1863. And how our collective appreciation for and understanding of it has evolved since the Gettysburg Address. My birthday is July 3rd, so since kindergarten, I have always associated my birthday with America's. I still do. I cannot remember a time when I did not know about or when I could not recite the opening sentences of the Declaration of Independence. This evening has been billed as a celebration, as it is, as it should be. But it also should be, if we're being honest, a commemoration, something more thoughtful than mere celebration, and an interpretation, something even more nuanced than a commemoration. Today, perhaps more than ever in the United States, we read and hear the idea or argument that American history with a capital H is some fixed body of knowledge that exists only as an objective, or as some would have it, a purely factual record of past people, places, and events. Every day, we read and hear that there are public and private institutions, historians, public historians, other scholars, journalists, teachers, professors, and many others among us who are erasing our history or rewriting it. Those who argue that accuse others of focusing more on negative aspects of our collective past than on the traditional positive, even celebratory aspects of it. Historians do not erase history every generation, but we do rewrite it. We not only should, we must. We're doing something else with history. To note two other words that start with re, revising and refining it. We change the narrative that we tell about our past. We change our collective understanding of those narratives, and we offer multiple interpretations based on our honest engagement with history. The writing box that Thomas Jefferson used to write the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, a portable desk he designed himself, now on display at the Smithsonian, is the most important laptop in American history. Jefferson's Declaration which he insisted should be one of only 3 achievements listed on his gravestone, is as plain and elegant a document as the desk he wrote it on. The Declaration of Independence is indeed a declaration, a statement of a moral truth, not a scientific one, not a mathematical one, but a truth to strive toward. The very first sentence calls Americans one people and the British another, setting the tone from the very beginning, defining the war for American independence as a revolution, not a rebellion. This is a literal declaration to the world of Americans seeking and fighting a bloody war to win their independence. It is also an expression of the Enlightenment philosophy of the natural rights of man. It continues, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. Annette Gordon Reed has recently offered a nuanced answer to the most perplexing question we've asked about the Declaration of Independence from the beginning. Did Jefferson really intend his statement of equality to apply to everyone? She asked. Gordon Reed wonders if a revolutionary document like the Declaration could still be aligned with Jefferson's personal beliefs, specifically his comfort as a slaveholder and his influence as an advocate of white supremacy. She reminds us, though, that by the time of his death, even he understood that the Declaration spoke to people's aspirations for equal treatment and personal liberty far beyond its origins in 1776. That phrase, the pursuit of happiness, did not, in Jefferson's day, mean individual happiness. It meant public happiness, virtue, the pursuit of the common good. It is only in the modern world, with our emphasis upon, some might say, secular near worship of, an individual's feelings and responses to them, that the pursuit of happiness has been, as Jeffrey Rosen observes, transformed from being good to feeling good. Many of us value our individual and personal independence so much that we devalue our collective and shared dependence on each other. Is the freedom we demand for ourselves freedom from or freedom to? Both. But freedom to often seems to be in the ascendant now. The Declaration proclaims Americans' determined opposition to King George III and to the citizens of Great Britain in subtle yet powerful ways, announcing American unity by the words we, us, and our, charging George with tyranny by the words he, him, and his, and breaking with the British people generally by the words they, them, and theirs. A catalog of grievances against the king, his cabinet ministers, parliament, and British civil officials and military commanders is both the lengthiest section of the document and the section most tied to the historical moment in which they were first written, then approved by the Continental Congress, then printed and distributed to the world. Those grievances originally included Jefferson's pointed, yet clearly exaggerated and even invented, charges that the only reason slavery even existed in British North America was because King George had waged cruel war against nature itself by the African slave trade, that he had excited those very people to rise in arms among us, that he had kept open a market where men should be bought and sold. Only the last of those charges of inciting the slaves to rise up was true, but in inserting them in his first draft, Jefferson ensured that there would be a debate over them when Congress considered his document. After heated objection from the South Carolina and Georgia delegations, Jefferson reluctantly agreed to strike the passage criticizing both the slave trade and slavery itself. The last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence includes Richard Henry Lee's resolution of June 7th, arguing these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That resolution formed the basis for Congress's vote in favor of independence on July 2nd. John Adams wrote his wife Abigail after that unanimous vote, "The second day of July 1776 will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival, from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." Adams was right about the celebration, but wrong about the date. July 2nd was the day independence was voted upon, but July the 4th was the day the Declaration of Independence was adopted. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two of the last three surviving signers of the Declaration, the last two members of the Committee of Five that drafted it, and also the second and third presidents of the United States, both died on July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson died first, shortly after asking, "Is it the 4th?" Adams followed a few hours later, shortly after saying, "Jefferson still survives." How did succeeding generations view the Declaration of Independence in their own lives and times? There was little, if any, agreement over what the Declaration meant between the Revolution and the Civil War. In that era, the debate over slavery was often a battle of words in which history was a convenient weapon to support whatever argument any public figure or private citizen sought to wage and win. In that debate, some leading figures on both sides minimized or criticized the Declaration of Independence. Abolitionists such as William Lloyd Garrison called it a fatally flawed document because slavery was so firmly entrenched in America that abolishing it seemed an impossible goal. Garrison claimed that in an Independence Day speech in 1829, "What a pitiful detail of grievances does this document present in comparison with the wrongs which our slaves endure. I am ashamed of our country." Fellow abolitionist and former slave Frederick Douglass told an Independence Day audience in 1852, "It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom," meaning that it could not be his independence or freedom, or any black person's, whether free or slave, that they were celebrating. "The 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn." In the same speech, however, better known as "What to the Slave is the 4th of July," Douglass told his listeners that the Declaration contained saving principles. Stand by those principles. Be true to them on all occasions, in all places, against all foes, and at whatever cost. Slaveholders such as Senator John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, meanwhile, argued in 1848, "The phrase 'all men are created equal' is utterly untrue. It was inserted in our Declaration of Independence without any necessity and was an utterly false view of the subordinate relation of the black to the white race in the South." Others, however, pointed to that phrase, "all men are created equal," as an ideal to which the United States should aspire, one that, though not yet achieved, might still be attained in a more progressive and more just future. As the sectional conflict intensified and as he rose to political prominence on the national stage, Abraham Lincoln asked in an 1858 speech, "I should like to know if taking this old Declaration of Independence, which declares that all men are equal upon principle, and making exceptions to it, where will it stop?" In the first Lincoln-Douglas debate that same year, he argued, "There is no reason in the world why the Negro is not entitled to all the natural rights enumerated in the Declaration of Independence, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," followed by loud cheers from the audience. After South Carolina seceded from the Union at the end of 1860, and as it and 6 other slave states sought to establish the new Confederate States of America to maintain and expand slavery, 2 prominent figures of the moment invoked the Declaration to espouse radically different versions of freedom. On Washington's birthday, February 22nd, 1861, President-elect Abraham Lincoln raised the Stars and Stripes in Philadelphia, telling the throng, "I have never had a feeling politically that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence." It gave promise that in due time, the weight should be lifted from the shoulders of all men and that all should have an equal chance. Mere weeks later, Confederate Vice President Alexander H. Stephens, in a speech in Savannah, countered that the Declaration of Independence was simply wrong. He argued that Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers had mistakenly rested upon the assumption of the equality of the races. This was an error. Our new government, that is the Confederacy, our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and moral condition. Applause interrupted Stephen's speech for several minutes. At Gettysburg 2 years later, Lincoln acknowledged that the Civil War was a test to see if any nation so conceived and so dedicated as the United States had been during and through the American Revolution might long endure. He closed with a prayer that the United States would not only survive its test, but thrive, and that it might have a new birth of freedom parallel to that of 77 years before in 1776. He prayed that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, emphasizing the word people and not the words of, by, and for, should not perish from the earth. Lincoln used this ceremony to propose a renewed and shared dedication to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence. In doing so, he elevated it from a practical statement of purpose for a particular time and place to an idealistic statement of human rights that transcended its origins, its time, and its place. Scholars are still, 250 years on, continuously revising and refining how we understand the Declaration and its multiple legacies. Listen to the titles of these books, only a few of them, from an enormous imaginary shelf of them weighted down with new ones appearing daily even as I speak tonight. Inventing America, American Scripture, Our Declaration, The Pursuit of Happiness, Declaring Independence, Why 1776 Matters, and The Greatest Sentence Ever Written. How can we use our shared past to help light our way toward a more just and inclusive future? Dr. Lonnie Bunch, the Secretary of the Smithsonian, has identified three possible ways. Let us use history to inspire us to push a country forward, a goal we should all endorse. To help us believe that all things are possible, a more elusive goal, but one we might still hope for. And to demand a country live up to its stated ideals. A demand, not a goal, and because it is a demand, perhaps one we might not all agree upon. The last sentence of the Declaration of Independence concludes, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. A pledge is a statement by an individual or community as an affirmation of shared ideals. Pledge is a more formal word than promise because we often use promise to mean a relationship between individuals more than one between communities. But both words define an informal contract in which one party affirms something to another party. They convey the affirmation of and hope for something that exists in the future, not in the present, an affirmation and hope that exists and persists no matter what came before. And so it is no wonder, no coincidence, that our students, Ms. Tanasia Odom and Ms. Adeline Snyder, whose prize-winning essays focus on the Declaration as a document of its time and of ours, both use the same simple yet profound word in their papers, promise. They remind us, and I am honored to add my voice to theirs, to consider both the unfulfilled promise of 1776 and the unfulfilled promise ahead of us beyond 2026. The lofty ideals of 1776 and the 250 years since still call us to action. All men, all human beings, are created equal, but Wendell Berry rightly cautions us. The difficulty, for us modern Americans anyhow, comes with the need to honor rightly both the all and the distinct persons and lives within the all. Jefferson's and our declaration of a moral truth was not achieved in 1776, or in 1865 with the preservation of the Union and the abolition of slavery, or in the years since. We are still on a road toward a destination in a nation where all truly means all. We must pledge ourselves and each other to a goal that, though it may never be fully achieved, must still be our ideal, a shared pursuit of happiness, of the common good for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Power. For the last few years during Constitution Week in September, our department has sponsored an essay writing contest for all students at Newberry College. This year, in celebration of the signing of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, we continue that practice by establishing an essay contest for all students on why is the Declaration of Independence important and what does it mean to me. We had several, and I'm telling you, they were outstanding essays. That it was a hard decision from the panel of 3 judges to pick a winner. This year, we're proud that there was a tie between 2 essays. Tanasia Odom, a rising junior majoring in nursing, and minoring in speech from Asheville, North Carolina, and Adeline Schneider, a freshman majoring in pre-veterinary science and minoring in business administration from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. They are here tonight to read their essays, and each winner will receive a check for $300. At this time, Ms. Odom, please.
Good evening. I hope everyone is well, and I'm glad that you all are here. The title of my essay is called Claiming the Promise. The first time I voted, nothing dramatic happened. There were no crowds, no music, no sense that history paused and noticed me. I stood in line at my local polling place. I signed my name, filled small ovals on a sheet of paper, and dropped it into the machine that beeped once I moved, and it moved on to the next person. The whole thing took less than 10 minutes. By the time I got back to my car, I was still moving. The traffic was still moving. People were checking their phones. The world looked exactly the same. Something about that ordinary moment stayed with me. I remember sitting in the driver's seat a little longer than necessary, holding the I voted sticker in my hand before placing it on my shirt. It felt simple, almost unimpressive. Yet I knew it wasn't small. I had just participated in a system built on an idea written nearly 250 years ago, an idea that did not originally include someone like me, a 28-year-old African-American woman living an ordinary American life. That idea appears in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. The truth is, when those words were written, they were not true in practice. Women had no political voice. Black people were enslaved. Equality existed more as an aspiration than a reality. It would be easy to see the Declaration as a contradiction, a document that spoke freedom while standing in a society that denied it to many. Yet what has always mattered about the Declaration is not what America was in 1776, but what America gave itself permission to become. The Declaration did something unusual in history. It did not merely separate colonies from a king, it established a standard higher than the nation itself. Instead of saying, this is who we are, it said, this is who we must be. The difference is the document survived its own imperfections. The words were larger than the moment in which they were written. For generations, people excluded from the founding promise did not discard the Declaration, they quoted it. Abolitionists appointed to it. Women's suffrage leaders carried it in their arguments. Civil rights activists marched in its language in their speeches. They did not claim America had lived up to its ideas. They insisted America had declared ideals and was obligated to honor. The power of declaration is that it gives Americans a shared vocabulary for belonging. Every moment for justice in this country has spoken in its language. That means the document functions less like a finished statement and more like a standing invitation, an unfinished commitment waiting for each generation to interpret. I experience that inheritance in everyday ways. I work, I pay my taxes, I care for people, I make decisions about my life, I participate in my community. None of these actions feel revolutionary while they're happening, they feel ordinary. But ordinary independence is exactly what the Declaration set into motion. Its influence is quiet now because it succeeded in becoming normal. The founders could not have pictured my life specifically, yet the fact that I can live it with agents, voice, and expectation of dignity comes from the principle that chose to write down. The country has spent 2.5 centuries arguing about what those words require, and the argument itself has proved that their importance. We disagree constantly in America about policy, leadership, and direction, but we continue to debate using the same foundational ideas. Equality is the measure. That matters today because the nation needs more laws to survive. It needs shared belief about what those laws should aim toward. The Declaration proves that aim. It reminds us that citizenship is not based on perfection, but on participation and common promise. We do not gather as Americans because we all come from the same past. We gather because we have agreed to move toward the same principle. When I think back to that quiet moment after voting, I realize why it stayed with me. I was not celebrating a flawless history. I was taking a part in an ongoing one. The Declaration of Independence did not describe a completed America. It described an America always in progress. Each generation measures the distance between those words and reality, and then decides how much closer it's willing to move. 250 years later, the significance of the Declaration is not that perfectly captured freedom, but that defined freedom, clear enough for future Americans to claim it as their own. I am one of those Americans. My presence in civic life does not erase the past, but it does demonstrate the reach of the promise. The document's endurance lies in its ability to expand without losing its meaning. The world did not change when I left that polling place, but I had participated in something larger than a single election. I had stepped into a tradition of people insisting that the nation living up on the truth that it's declared. The Declaration of Independence still matters because it gives us destination, even when its path is unfinished. It was never only a statement about who Americans were. It remains a commitment to who Americans are still becoming. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is my essay titled The Heart of a Free Nation. The Declaration of Independence is one of the most powerful documents ever written in human history. When I read it, I do not see it as just an old piece of paper from the past. I see courage, sacrifice, and the foundation of the freedoms we experience every day. The men who wrote and signed the Declaration were not simply writing words. They were making a decision that could cost them all their lives. They believed that freedom and self-government were worth that risk. Because of their bravery, the United States was born. For me, the Declaration of Independence is not just a historical document, it is a reminder of what freedom means and why it must never be taken for granted. One of the most powerful ideas in the Declaration is the statement that all people are created equal and are given certain unalienable rights. The rights include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When Thomas Jefferson wrote these words, they were revolutionary. At the time, kings and monarchies controlled much of the world, and ordinary people had very little say in how they were governed. The Declaration challenged that system. It declared that the power of government should not come from the people, not from a king. This idea helped shape not only America, but also many other democratic governments around the world. To me, the Declaration represents the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it is dangerous. The colonists were not guaranteed victory against the British Empire. In fact, many people believed they would fail. Yet, the signers of the Declaration chose to stand firm in their belief that freedom was worth fighting for. That kind of bravery is something I deeply respect. It reminds me that the freedoms we enjoy today did not come easily. They were earned through sacrifice, determination, and faith in a better future. The Declaration also reminds Americans that freedom comes with responsibility. and that when a government becomes destructive to those rights, the people have the authority to change it. This idea places an important responsibility on citizens. A free society depends on people who are willing to stay informed, participate in their communities, and defend the principle that makes freedom possible. The Declaration is not just about independence from Britain, it is about the ongoing responsibility of citizens to protect the values that founded the nation. In today's America, the Declaration of Independence still holds incredible importance. Even though it was written nearly 250 years ago, its message continues to guide the country. In a time when people often disagree strongly about politics, the Declaration reminds us of the shared time when people often disagree strongly. Oh, I reread that, sorry guys. Shared principles that unite us as Americans. Regardless of our differences, whether Black, whether white, whether Republican, or whether Democrat, the belief in individual rights, freedom, and equality under the law remains at the core of the American identity. I believe the Declaration is also important because it reminds us that America is always a work in progress. The ideals expressed in the document are incredibly high standards. Throughout history, Americans have worked to live up to those ideals more fully. Movements for civil rights, equality, and justice have all drawn inspiration from the words of the Declaration. The document challenges each generation to continue striving toward the promise that all people are created equal. As a college student today, I see the Declaration of Independence as both a privilege and a responsibility. I also come from a military family where service to this country has always been deeply respected. Because of that upbringing, I have learned that the freedom described in the Declaration are not just ideas on paper. They are freedoms that generations of Americans have defended through sacrifice and service. I plan to follow that tradition by joining the military myself, continuing the commitment my family has made to protecting the nation and the principles it was founded on. The freedoms I experience every day, including the ability to pursue my own education and speak openly about my beliefs, exist because of the foundation the Declaration created. At the same time, it reminds me that the freedom should never be taken for granted. Each generation must understand the sacrifices that built this country and must be willing to protect the principles that sustain it. The Declaration of Independence is more than a document from the past. It is a statement of hope and belief in the power of human freedom. It reminds us that people are capable of standing up against injustice and building something greater for future generations. Nearly 250 years after it was written, its message continues to inspire Americans to value liberty, pursue justice, and work toward a nation that lives up to its founding ideals. For these reasons, the Declaration of Independence remains deeply meaningful to me. It represents courage, freedom, and the enduring belief that a nation built on the rights of its people can continue to grow and improve. As America approaches the 250th anniversary of its founding, the Declaration stands as a powerful reminder of where we began and what we must continue striving to become. Thank you very much.
Wow. That's why it was a hard decision between the two. And all of them, again, all those that wrote essays did an outstanding job. They did an excellent job. Please welcome at this time Miss Audrey Gorman. She will be reading for, in your program, if you saw, Mr. Tyson Funderburk, who could not make it. They had an athletic event that was changed. So we appreciate Ms. Gorman doing that for us tonight. She's going to be reading the powerful Gettysburg Address delivered by President Abraham Lincoln on November 19th, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' Cemetery at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Ms. Gorman.
As we gather to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of America's Declaration of Independence, it is altogether proper that we should also recognize the sacrifices made by those women and men who serve and have served in the armed forces of the United States of America to help guarantee the rights so elegantly written in this declaration. Freedom is not free. Without their willingness to sacrifice and offer their lives in service to others, there would be little to celebrate. However, those who have not served have a somewhat greater responsibility. It is with this in mind that the Gettysburg Address is being read on this day of recognition and celebration. The Gettysburg Address, delivered by Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, November 19, 1863. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are men on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. In a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
We are honored to have Colonel John Favors, Director of Newberry County's 250th celebration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence Committee. He and his group have been very supportive of this event, and his committee is planning many events in Newberry County commemorating this very important part of our history this year. He also has a table located in the narthex highlighting the dates and times of those events. Colonel Favors.
Good evening and greetings from the South Carolina State 250th anniversary of the American Revolution Commission and the Newberry County 250 Committee. 1976, when we celebrated our bicentennial, the emphasis was on things like the battles, everything from Bunker Hill to Saratoga to Yorktown, and key personalities like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and some of the other things that we all know, the symbols, Declaration of Independence, the Liberty Bell. But there were some folks that were left out of that historical narrative. Some that got short shrift, or in some cases were actually left out of that story. And the emphasis for this year's celebration and commemoration is to try to highlight the important roles and contributions of some of those people. We started, Newberry Museum started with a series of lectures in February, coinciding with Black History Month, where we focused on the important roles that played by the African Americans during the American Revolution. Some fought on the side of the patriots, some fought on the side of the loyalists, but they're all part of the historical narrative that made us our country. In March, we focused on Women's History Month and the roles that you normally don't think of: spies, fighting in actual combat, supplies, nursing, taking care of our troops. All those help sustain the Army throughout the important period. In April, coming up, we've got a lecture series in the museum. These are all free, open to the public. The Revolutionary War cemeteries, for those of you interested in genealogy. A lecture on Quakers and Dunkers, pacifists during the American Revolution, topic you don't normally think of. In April 21st, Our Story 2, Women, Native Americans, and African Americans in the Revolutionary War. It's a presentation at the Newberry Opera House. Again, free and open to the public. In May, we've got a lecture on Revolutionary Roads, and then another one on the Revolution of 1775. Herbal medicine of the 18th century. In June, we're looking at the crossroads of the American Revolution, new exhibit in the Newberry Museum. June 20th, the Gullah, American Revolutionary War Experience, It's a Gullah Traveling Theater presentation at the Newberry Opera House. And an army marches on its stomach to talk about how to sustain an army during this time. The big emphasis, though, is Carolina Days. Carolina Days is when it's going to reach a crescendo throughout the state. Carolina Days this year are going to run from June 27th through July 5th. And the state has developed a series of days focusing on different topics. You can celebrate these in your own way, or on your way out, pick up this menu that has different days and some ideas of how things you can do to celebrate in your own area. Here in Newberry, we're looking at on June 28th at noon, Freedom Rings, bells across the state, whether it's church bells, city bells, cow bells, jingle bells, will ring at 12 o'clock noon to ring in the birth of our freedom. In the Newberry Museum on June the 30th is Kids Day. Started with a Join the Militia, different kids activities, games, things of enjoyment. July the 2nd, Newberry Opera House is going to have 2 presentations of the movie The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson. They're free, open to the public, one at 3 o'clock and one at 7, with reenactors dressed in period attire for photo ops for the whole family. The big day is July the 3rd. As Mayor Sin mentioned, at 12 o'clock, there will be a dedication of the new Revolutionary War monument down in Memorial Square. And then that evening at 6:30 at the Opera House, there'll be another reading of the Declaration of Independence and a patriotic music concert by the U.S. Army Band. The celebration is not going to end, though, in July. It's going to carry on. We're looking in August, presentations on turncoats, those who switched sides during the American Revolution. September, the battles for the backcountry. In the Narvex, you'll see a map that shows where each of these battles took place here throughout the county, as well as Bloody Bill Cunningham's Bloody Scout. Also, Hessians and the American Revolution in the South, and also a presentation on the Newberry Cannon. There was a cannon that was dug up right here in the campus of Newberry College. It is now in the museum, and I think, Tracy, you probably remember several years ago, we now know the story behind it, who made it, where it came from, and what happened to it. In October, colonial agricultural crops, and the Newberry Museum has got a botanical garden at the very back of it, and the Newberry Nosegay Garden Club has set up a Revolutionary War garden back there where you can see plants and herbs that were planted, that was used here during the Revolution. It's a great contribution. Then in October, Bloody Bill Cunningham's Bloody Scout, a revenge tour throughout the county. And then the Loyalists of Newberry. You don't think about that. In November, we're looking at the Search for Shires Ferry and the Veterans Day Parade. In November, Tarleton's route through Cowpens. You'll see another map in the Narvex. It shows Bannister Tarleton as he came into Newberry County and on his way to Cowpens. We've identified some 14 different stops along that way. In December, the cost of independence and the aftermath of the Revolution. What happened to people, both Loyalists and the Patriots, after the war? And we finally end up on a positive note in December, Christmas traditions in the backcountry. So these are a few things that are coming up, but the best ideas come from you. And so if you're looking for a place to start, pick up one of those menus and start a revolution in your own community. Thank you.
As you can see, there are many, many things happening in Newberry and Newberry County. What a wonderful night. I want to thank all of you for attending this special event. I want to especially thank the participants, special guests, and everyone involved in putting this event together. Let's all give them a hand, please. The person I want to especially thank for his vision and hard work for this event to happen while recovering from surgery is my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Dennis Lambrys. Our students are blessed to have such an outstanding teacher and mentor at Newberry College that genuinely cares about them and loves this institution of higher learning. Dr. Lambrys is here with us tonight. Would you please stand, Dr. Lambrys? Again, please continue to look for many exciting things that are going to be happening this year in Newberry County. Thank you for your attendance. God bless America, and good night. Please drive carefully. You are dismissed.